origin of life. In this topic, I am going to talk about different theories which explains how life have originated on planet Earth in its most primitive form. Several scientific and non-scientific explanations have been given from time to time about the nature of life, its origin, evolution, and occurrence in the universe. The concept of biochemical origin of life has become widely accepted among all proposed theories. And medieval beliefs, and that first is theory of spontaneous generation or abiogenesis. According to this theory, life has originated from non-living organic matter abiogenetically, that is, without the intervention of living things. Epicurus between 342 and 271 BC advocated the origin of worms and several other animals from the soil or manure by the action of warmth of the sun and air. The views of Aristotle between 384 and 322 BC were even more abiogenetic, postulating that not only worms and insects, but also fish, frogs, and mice emerged spontaneously from dew, rotten slime, manure, dry wood, sweat, mill, etc. Eels originated from sea mud. Frogs and salamanders evolved from coagulated slime, and butterflies from cheese. Second is theory of panspermia of cosmozoic theory. According to this theory, the life is distributed throughout the cosmos in the form of resistant spores of living forms, the cosmozoa. This reached the Earth accidentally from some other planet, and on getting favorable conditions for life, these developed into organisms. Third one is biogenesis. The physician Francesco Redi between 1621 to 1697 was the first scientist to remove the beliefs of spontaneous generations. He cooked few fishes and placed them in 3 jars. Out of these 3, one was left uncovered, the other was covered with a parchment paper, and the last was covered with fine muslin. In a few days, maggots appeared only in the first jar and not in the others. He concluded that the flies arise from the eggs laid down by the parent flies in the uncovered jar. Thus, maggots cannot appear spontaneously. Modern hypothesis of origin of life or biochemical origin of life. The modern hypothesis of origin of life was formulated by Haeckel, who considered that the most primitive organisms would have been generated spontaneously at some time from some inorganic matter. As a result of formative action of some special external physical forces as electrical charges, ultraviolet light, and corpuscular radiations of radioactive elements. But the hypothesis was in such a crude form that it needed further explanation and experimental support. The genius work of Haldane, A. I. Oparin, Stanley Miller, and H. Urey and others has provided evidences in favor of this hypothesis. The first scientific account of the origin of life was given by Oparin in 1922 in the book Origin of Life. It is believed that origin of life was a gradual process and that life did not come into existence suddenly as a consequence of a combination of whole series of chance occurrences. It has been described in the following steps. Origin of Earth and its primitive atmosphere. The Earth is presumed to have originated about 5 billion or 6 billion years ago, either as a part broken off from the molten mass of Sun or by gradual condensation of interstellar dust from which our entire solar system is presumed to be formed. Initially, it was a fiery spinning ball of hot gases and vapors of various elements. Gradually, through hundreds of millions of years, the gases condensed into a molten core and different elements got stratified according to their density. The heavy elements like iron and nickel etc. sank to the center and formed the solid core of the Earth. The lighter elements such as silicon, aluminium formed the middle shell, while the lightest one like helium, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and carbon etc. flew to the surface and formed gaseous atmosphere. The original temperature of Earth was about 5000 to 6000 degrees Celsius. At this high temperature, elements like hydrogen, oxygen, carbon and nitrogen could not exist in free state. This combined either among themselves or with metals forming oxides, carbides and nitrides. Thus, carbon was found as a dicarbon, cyanogens, methane and as metal carbides. Nitrogen was present in combination with metals to form nitrides. Similarly, oxygen formed oxides and hydrogen combined with oxygen, carbon and nitrogen forming water, methane, ammonia and cyanide. All these compounds were present in gaseous state and water as superheated steam due to high temperature of Earth. This formed the atmosphere of the primitive Earth. With the gradual fall in temperature, some of the gases liquefied and some of the liquids changed into solids. Superheated steam condensed into water and resulted in rain. The rain drops on approaching the superheated Earth immediately evaporated and returned into the atmosphere. This cycle continued for millions of years, due to which Earth's surface became cool enough to hold water and the large water bodies or lagoons, seas and oceans came into existence. The oceanic water contained atmospheric ammonia and methane, which got dissolved and washed down with the water, dropped from the atmosphere in the form rain. Mineral rocks also dissolved, leading to the accumulation of mineral and salts in the oceanic water. Therefore, primitive oceans were alkaline. Therefore, about 3 billion years ago or afterwards, the Earth had a solid crust, frequently punctured by eruption of molten rocks, that is volcanoes, and at places filled with hot boiling seawater. The seawater contained dissolved ammonia, methane, some minerals and salts. The primitive atmosphere of Earth was devoid of free oxygen, but rich in ammonia, methane and hydrogen, as found in the present atmosphere of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. Other investigators have concluded that the principal constituents were carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen and hydrogen. The Earth was also bombarded with high energy radiations from the Sun. Now, the chemical origin of life. Oparin suggested that from these simple compounds, more and more complex organic compounds were formed gradually under the influence of electric charges, ultraviolet rays or corpuscular radiations. First step is origin of organic compounds. Formation of hydrocarbons. When the temperature of Earth's surface cooled down to 1000 degrees Celsius or even lower, a variety of simple hydrocarbons, both saturated and unsaturated, were formed, possibly by the following methods. The combinations of highly reactive free radicals CH and CH2. Two molecules of hydrocarbons when fused together give rise to formation of acetylene. Two molecules of methyl groups when fused together, it forms ethylene. Two molecules of methyl group fused together, it also forms methane CH4. Two molecules of methane fused together, it forms acetylene. Metal carbides reacted with steam, in which a calcium carbide CaC2 when combines with molecules of water, it gives rise to acetylene. And 3 mole of iron carbide, that is 3Fe4C5, combines with 16 molecules of water, it gives rise to formation of hydrocarbon, which is C15H32 plus iron oxide 4Fe3O4. Thus, primordial atmosphere contained mixture of ammonia, hydrogen and other elements, that is, it was reducing atmospheres. Formation of oxy and hydroxyl derivatives of hydrocarbons. Saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbons reacted with superheated steam and formed oxy and hydroxyl derivatives like aldehydes, ketones and acids. When acetylene fused with a molecule of water, it gives rise to acetaldehyde, which is CH3CHO. Formation of carbohydrates. The hydroxyl derivatives also give rise to small chain compounds of C, H and O. These first formed compounds must have been glucose and fructose. Their condensation formed the disaccharides, that is sugar, and polysaccharides, that is starch. Formation of fatty acids and glycerol. The condensation and polymerization of the aldehydes and ketones and the oxidation gave rise to fatty acids. In fatty acids, percentages of oxygen was less and had long straight chains of carbon. It is supposed that in early oceans, glycerol and fatty acids might have combined to form the fats. When two molecules of acetaldehyde fuse together and condensation reactions takes place, it forms the molecules of aldol. In polymerization, the molecules became interlinked, forming complex derivatives. When molecules of acetic acid fuse with the molecules of ethyl alcohol, polymerization takes place and forms the ethyl acetate plus molecules of water. When two molecules of acetaldehyde fuse with molecules of water, oxidoreductions occur and acetic acid is formed plus ethyl alcohol is formed. When two molecules of formaldehyde fuse together, polymerization takes place and glycolaldehyde forms. When glycolaldehyde combines with molecules of water, oxidoreductions occur and molecules of glycol is formed or molecules of glycolic acid is formed. When these molecules of glycolic acid combines with molecules of ammonia, it gives rise to synthesis of glycines, which is amino acid. Formation of amino acids and proteins. Hydrocarbons, ammonia and water under the influence of freely available energy reacted with each other to form amino acids. The polymerizations of amino acids give rise to long chains of polypeptide chains, the proteins molecule. The hot dilute soup, the synthesis of carbohydrates, fats and amino acids and other complex organic substances probably occurred in sea. This had been described by Helden as the hot dilute soup, containing molecules of these organic substances in abundance. Such organic molecules could not accumulate today because of enormous number of microorganisms that use and degrade them as food. But on the primitive earth, with the absence of microorganisms, such molecules could accumulate in layers on mud or clay, which provide surface for continuous reactions. The energy required to complete the process were available from ultraviolet radiation from sun, ionizing radiation, that is protons, electrons and X-rays, electric discharge, that is lightning and heat. Second step is formation of macromolecules or complex organic molecules. In the hot organic soup, the molecules of simple organic substances came together in increasing number, collided, reacted and aggregated, forming new molecules of increasing size and complexity, resulting in the formation of more and more complex organic compounds like polysaccharides, fats, proteins, purines, pyrimidines, nucleosides and nucleotides. Especially sugar molecules combine to form polysaccharides like starch, cellulose and glycogen, etc. The fats were formed by the action of fatty acids with glycerol. A large number of amino acid molecules became linked together, forming long polypeptide chains. Some of them acted as a primitive enzymes and speeded up the rate of formation of specific molecules. The formation of protein molecules can consider a landmark in the origin of life. Third step is formation of nucleic acid. Purine sugar phosphate and pyrimidine sugar phosphate were formed in the beginning. These compounds are called nucleotides. These nucleotides linked together in different combination to form a nucleic acids. Thus, formation of nucleic acid was an important event for the origin of life. In next step, formation of nucleoproteins takes place. The protein molecules and nucleic acid thus formed later aggregated and united to form giant molecules of nucleoprotein. It is believed that these nucleoproteins must have characteristics of a free living gene. A number of such genes might have aggregated to form a large unit called the protovirus, which is comparable to the present day virus. All the events up to the formation of nucleoproteins and other complex macromolecules have been under chemical evolution of life. Further events in the origin of living forms are described under biological evolution of life. Biological evolution. First is a formation of primary organisms. The giant organic molecules had a tendency to aggregate in various combinations to form a large colloidal particles. These were named coacervates. These coacervates contain more than one type of proteins, nucleoproteins and other organic and inorganic molecules in various combinations. These appeared as distinct bodies suspended in the surrounding water medium. In the meantime, some of the fatty acids like lecithin and cephalin become organized to form a limiting membrane around the coacervates. Formation of surface membrane resulted in the accumulation of various substances inside the coacervates. Certain internal reactions like catalysis and absorptions could also occur independently inside them. At this stage, some proteins differentiated as enzymes. Naturally, then coacervates with enzymes were able to complete some of those reactions, which otherwise require more energy or a high temperature. These changes might have resulted in the formation of first ever cell. Natural selection must have operated at this level, and the coacervates with more favorable internal arrangements become more abundant. The nucleoproteins are sticky in nature. Therefore, these accumulated extensive shells of nutrients around themselves. This with nutritive shells proved more successful and became abundant and finally led to the development of cell. The first living cell. The coacervate with nucleoprotein molecules surrounded by nutrient shells and the limiting membranes are believed to be the first living cell. Early cell types. Among the various cell types that appeared during early period, the two are of particular significance. First is monoron type. In some cells, the nucleoproteins were loosely aggregated and embedded in the cell substance. Such cells are called monoron type and are regarded to be the ancestors of bacteria and blue-green algae. Second is protestant type. In some cells, the nucleoproteins were condensed into a central mass surrounded by a fine membrane. The nucleoprotein in such cells were separated from the cell substance and were called protestant type. Problem of energy sources. These early cell types might have been akin to our present day microbes, competing for raw materials available from the seawater. With gradual increase in the early cell and the consequent decline in the natural source of food in the ocean, this delimited central mass of nucleoproteins constituted the nucleus. Early living organisms that are the ancestors of monorons and protista evolved different methods for obtaining food. These are parasites. These forms started living within the bodies of living cells and obtained their food from them. Monorons, viruses and few protista are parasitic. Saprophytes. Some organisms started drawing their nourishment from the bodies of dead and decaying cells. Many bacterial groups adopted this method. Predator. This was animal-like way of eating in which one organism eats another in whole or in parts and obtained its food in this manner. Chemosynthesizers. This method includes the utilization of energy from the inorganic molecules. Certain primitive forms could utilize compounds of sulfur, iron and nitrogen etc. and make them undergo chemical reactions. The energy liberated this way is used in the synthesis of organic molecules. Certain bacteria living today still subsist on this mode of feeding. Photosynthesis. The process of chemosynthesis could not become popular due to limited resources. Therefore, an independent method was evolved to utilize the never-ending solar energy, which is known as photosynthesis. Organisms which developed photosynthetic capacity were the first plant-like types, and in due course evolved into the plant kingdom. The oxygen revolution. With the increase of photosynthesizing organisms, oxygen was liberated in the sea and then into the atmosphere. This free oxygen then reacted with methane and ammonia present in the primitive atmosphere and transformed them into carbon dioxide and free nitrogen. Like methane, when combines with two molecules of oxygen, it gives rise to carbon dioxide and water. Like that, ammonia when combines with 3 molecules of oxygen, it gives rise to 2 molecules of nitrogen and 6 molecules of water. These events ultimately transformed the ancient atmosphere with plenty of free oxygen. The modern atmosphere does not contain methane and ammonia, but is mainly formed of water vapors, carbon dioxide and molecular nitrogen, hydrogen and large quantities of free molecular oxygen. Free oxygen finally led to the evolution of aerobic mode of respiration, which yielded more energy on oxidation of foodstuffs compared to anaerobic respiration. Experimental evidences. The modern theory of origin of life is based on certain evidences collected from the spectroscopic analysis of light coming to the earth from sun and other planets, and also from experiments conducted in artificial environment. The earth, sun and other planets like Mars, Saturn, etc. are presumed to have originated at the same time from the local condensations within the cosmic dust of more or less uniform composition. The spectroscopic analysis of the light coming to earth from sun and other planets, combined with chemical analysis of meteorites that fall onto the earth, suggests that the 6 elements essential for life, that is hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur and phosphorus, are among the most abundant throughout the solar system even today. So, this must have been abundant on the newly formed earth. Moreover, the atmosphere of Uranus and Neptune is believed to possess hydrogen and helium gases together with methane gas, and the atmosphere of Jupiter and Saturn consists of large amounts of ammonia together with methane, hydrogen and helium. These findings suggest that the primitive atmosphere of Earth might have also consisted of hydrogen, helium, methane and ammonia, and that there was no free oxygen and nitrogen in its atmosphere. Experiments conducted by Stanley Miller in 1953 and Harold Urey at the University of Chicago show that amino acids like glycine and alanine and even more complex organic compounds can be formed in vitro when the mixture of water vapors, methane, ammonia and hydrogen gases in a closed chamber is exposed to electric discharge for a few days. From this simple experiment, Miller suggested that electric discharges produced during lightning in the early atmosphere of Earth containing ammonia, nitrogen, methane, hydrogen and water might have resulted in the formation of amino acids and other complex organic compounds, which are the component of living system. Pavlovsky and Pesinski in 1959 subjected the above mixture of gases to sparking as well as to the ultraviolet rays and reported the synthesis of alanine, beta-alanine, glycine, aspartic acid and glutamic acid, etc. In 1968, synthesis of a DNA molecule consisting of 77 nucleotides in the test tube by Dr. Hargobind Khurana has further supported the possibility of such a synthesis of genes by the union of nucleotides in nature.